I started asking myself, well, why do these people need to keep coming back, right? Like, how come they're not healing? Because we know our body has the innate ability to heal itself if it's in the right environment.
All right, Dr. Ann, welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks, Coach G.
Hey, my partner in crime that I haven't seen for freaking ages.
Yeah, and we live in the same country now.
We live in the same country now. I know. You've been a busy lady. What's been up? What's up? What's been happening?
Lots. Well, it's pretty close to my 1-year anniversary in New Zealand. So, and it was just such a journey. Landed here 1 year ago. COVID hit, I think, a week later, maybe somewhere around there. And everything just got turned upside down in the beginning. And I thought, okay, it's time to pivot. We all had to pivot, didn't we? And kind of recreate ourselves. So that's what I've been doing for the last year in New Zealand. Contract fell through. And here I am working alongside you, which has been amazing. We did some cool stuff together, with the No Ugly Sleeps product and getting that out and up and running, which is cool because it's Sleep Week this week. So that's great. Always good chat to have about that. And just doing a lot of really cool things around New Zealand now with personalized health and really helping a lot of people. So I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
You're really getting to see the country, man. You're going everywhere. It's actually really cool. What's your favorite spot?
Oh man. Oh boy, you're gonna ask. I don't know. I do want to comment on the lemons in this country, though. This is the lemons. Yeah, because, okay.
Okay, far away.
In Canada, we get these little lemons that are this big. And here, the lemons are like, and they're tasty. So I was going to say up north because I like the lemons, because you can plant lemons up there. Then you go down to the south and there's all this other fresh fruit that you can get. When I was just down in Queens, I was in Cromwell, of all places. And it was lots of fresh fruit, apples, nectarines, peaches, just everywhere. And so the great part about New Zealand, I'm finding, is, you can really buy locally here, which is what I like. And I like to support that. And that's so cool. Gosh, favorite place, Milford Sound. There you go. Milford Sound. Finally got it out. Had to be Milford Sound by far. Yeah, right now.
There's an epicness to Milford Sound.
Yeah. And just flying there is so untouched. There's nothing out there, no cell phone reception. Awesome. It was so awesome out there. Loved it. Yeah.
Well, I couldn't disagree with you. It's a pretty spectacular spot.
Yeah.
What do you think the greatest difference between New Zealand and North America is? What have you observed coming from North America?
Ooh, where do I start? Well, okay, I'll prelude and say I've lived in many different countries and pretty well-traveled person. And so I think I was actually a bit naive coming here because I've lived in many countries that I don't speak the same language. So I'm feeling like I'm always catching up with the language barrier. And this time I was excited because I was like, oh, for the first time, I don't have to learn a new language. Yay, cool. But then I come here and I'm like, actually, I do kind of need to learn a new language because there's different expressions, different ways of working here. North America is just so incredibly competitive and fast paced. And, I think just in the industry I was working in the professional athlete world, it was just so incredibly competitive, right? Who has the next advantage and so on. So coming here, the dynamic for me was way different. And also people here work together quite well. They want to team up and they want to do things together. So it was so incredibly refreshing for me to come here and say, oh, wow, I get to work with all these amazing people who know these amazing things and we can collaborate to make such a big difference. Okay, I'm in, because I just had never really had that kind of support. I felt like in the past, it was just kind of everyone's doing their job and just living to work in a way. And so the lifestyle here, I thought, was just so much better. Like, I had no idea people took off the month of January and almost December. And I was like, what? I didn't quite get it. And then it was so amazing because then I got to explore the country and meet people when they're kind of, more relaxed out of work and recovering. And then we were talking about health and this stuff. So I find New Zealand a lot more healthy in regards to whole lifestyle. And that's been fantastic. And then there's words. There's just words that I don't know still. I'm like, what does that mean? She'll be all right. Who's she?
She'll be right. Yeah. She'll be all right. She'll be right.
I've never, who's she? I want to know who she is.
Yeah,
Everyone talks about she. Who's that?
Metaphorical she.
Yeah.
Bugger. Yeah. True, bro. Yeah, we're unique. We're unique, but
yeah, you guys are cool. I'm
glad you stayed. I thought we were going to lose you for a bit, so
yeah, I thought I was going to lose me for a bit too. I'm back.
Yeah. You don't meet a Dr. Ann every day of the week, that's for sure.
No, you don't. Thanks, G. Cool.
So, mate, it's International Sleep Week, or sleep day on the 19th, but we're calling it Sleep Week. And obviously, we've started a little project on the side called Sleep Loop, and we want to encourage people to focus on this pillar called sleep.
Yeah.
And I guess the big thing for us is that we want to change the conversation. The conversation's not just about getting a good night's rest, although that's very important. It's this whole idea of holistic recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, you're a bit of a ninja in this space. So let's start with.
I love that space.
Yeah, man. We're going to get into epigenetics, but let's start with just sleep and recovery. So, why do you think it's so important? What have you seen in your clinical practices?
Yeah, just the story around it is quite powerful, because here I am. I was in the Western medicine side of things, studying, biology and genetics, human kinetics, right? And then I totally did this flip and went more Eastern, as we would call it, which I think they can all mesh together, but let's just call it what it is and how we see it, in osteopathy and Chinese medicine. And then, came the epigenetics pillar in the middle, where I feel like I can combine both and really give someone holistic work, which I'm sure we'll get into. So that's kind of the background on, what I was doing, where I was going, and all of that. And in all those studies, I started off with what I knew, like treating what showed up in the office in that moment. That's what I knew. I was a young practitioner. And then I started asking myself, well, why do these people need to keep coming back, right? Like, how come they're not healing? Because we know our body has the innate ability to heal itself if it's in the right environment. We do heal. We scrape ourselves, we heal. The same is inside us, in our organs, in our brain, in our way of thinking. We can morph and change ourselves as we want. And we do all the time in our days. We sweat when we're hot, we shiver when we're cold, right? These are changes. And then we talk to people differently based on how we're feeling, if we're stressed or if we're not, right? So I started to observe all of this in my clients and my practice, and it trickled into the professional athlete world, which was way more apparent because they're performers, right? They have to show up and perform. And I was with them on that journey. So I got to see that. And I thought, gosh, the missing pillar is what everybody is doing outside of either the appointment or their performance. So, professional athletes, what are they doing in between games was my big question. And, some would stay up playing video games all night and then have to show up and play basketball the next day. And their sleep was just, all over the map. And so it wasn't consistent. And then I thought, well, what are they doing for recovery before sleep? What are they eating to get the proper night's sleep? Who are they socializing with? Is it serving them? Are they stressed? And we started to ask all these questions around how are they even setting themselves up for sleep? So the day was actually really important to observe. And then getting that sleep on point and consistent for them is the kicker of allowing our bodies to heal. So that was my big learning, was what are they doing outside of performing? We can take CEOs, they're performing in their days, office workers, we're trying to show up and perform. Family members, we want to show up and be a good mother and a father, right? It's all about performance in our days, is what we strive to do and strive to be and to learn about ourselves. And then I think sometimes we forget to take care of ourselves first. And we have to come back to that in order to show up for ourselves better and being observant of self. So that was really my journey in observing my clients. And then I also had my own journey around that, of saying, whoa, if I'm going to be telling people to do this, I better do it myself. And what can I do to show up better for my clients so I can share my story, because that's always quite powerful. Yeah.
You said something in the middle there around environment, social environment, physical environment. And it's a nice segue to the next thing. So you talked about genetics. You obviously studied genetics. You did your PhD in genetics, and then you did Chinese medicine. But then in the middle here, you found this epigenetic stuff.
Yes, I did. It found me.
So
Yeah.
let's segue to that. And so let's go high level. What is epigenetics?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's actually looking above yourself. Epi's above, and then genetics is your genes, your personal self, who you are. We all operate in different bodies, and we're all quite unique in our way of operating. You know, it's quite awesome to look at children in this regards. You know, when children are in a classroom, we can say, well, not all of them learn the same way, do they? Right. So we all have different bodies and different ways to learn. So if we're putting, you know, taking the children example, and we're talking about teachers teaching one way to the children, you know, not everybody's going to get it, are they? And it's not going to feel good to everybody. Same within a social environment. You know, we have the classic extroverts and introverts, and I happen to be on, you know, a little extrovert over here. And I love being around people. You know, not 24/7, but I love being around people and engaging with them and having chats, and it feels good to me. It brings me energy. And then, you know, you have the introvert side of people on a social aspect where they get energy being alone. They need to recover being alone. So those two things, just in parallel, looking at them and saying, okay, these two bodies operate differently. How can we set them up so they're not feeling energy drained all of the time by expressing those genes that they actually don't really have, and expressing the genes that they do have to feel good. So, you know, the introvert needs time and space alone to recover. The extrovert does need social. And this comes into such a big topic today, right? Because we're living a lot in fear and uncertainty and all of this around the world, that some people don't get an opportunity to live their regular lives. The social people might feel a little bit, you know, depressed in a way, or like they can't express themselves. So they might express themselves in other ways, which might actually look unhealthy, like, you know, eating foods that might not serve them, or maybe getting more agitated because they might not be able to move as much, this kind of stuff. So, you know, it's just really interesting to observe this now, because we're not able to predict really how we're supposed to be living these days. And so people are having, I believe, to come in and really learn about themselves, which we can look at as a blessing in disguise. And that's really the basis of epigenetics, learning how to live in your own body and what suits you best. And everyone's different, as you know. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's talk about that. Talk about the impact it has on your recovery capacity. So you're only as good as your recovery, right? Mm-hmm. And I guess the main detrimental effect to your body, if you're not living the right style of lifestyle, the right, not hanging out the right social environments, making the wrong poor nutritional choices, is something called inflammation.
Yes.
So let's dive into inflammation, how that impacts sleep and recovery.
Right. Inflammation, gosh, well, you know, defining inflammation, what is it? What does it look like? What does it feel like? I wonder if people know this. I don't know. You know, people say I have inflammation, and people say, okay, my joints hurt, right? So inflammation will look different in everybody and show up different in everybody's body. It could look like a chronic disease. It can look like acne. It can look like eczema. It can look like a digestive disorder. All of these little things popping up are inflammatory responses telling us, hey, you might want to have a look inside yourself and change your environment and how you're operating. So, you know, inflammation, taking that. And then we know if we have certain amount of inflammation in our bodies over time, it's going to cause a disruption of some sort. What disruption? Well, it depends on who you are and what environment you're working in. We do see a lot of digestive issues. We see a lot of right now, mental health is a huge topic, right? And people are really overwhelmed and feeling like they can't sleep because they're just so stressed, probably because they haven't given their body enough time and space to recover. So the recovery aspect, like you said, is massive. And honing in on inflammation and potentially measuring it within yourself is really a good way. You know, the other day, I actually just ordered pH strips into my house. I thought, what's the easiest way? Because there's all this, you know, biohacking and health tech out there. And I thought, well, for people who aren't into that, how could they test where they're at in this moment? You know, 30 minutes after you eat or before you eat, pH strip on your tongue, saliva, have a look to see if your body's really acidic, really alkaline, or if you're cruising right in the middle. And that'll give you a really good indicator of what's happening in the body over time. It's pretty simple, right? And so I think we do make it way more complicated than it needs to be. And it's like, well, you know, if you're too acidic, eat more vegetables. And you know, you need more vegetables in your diet, and maybe that suits you better. And then the brain starts to go, whoa, I feel good if I'm eating these certain vegetables. Oh, goody. I'm going to keep eating those because I want to feel good and have more energy in my days, and therefore lowering the inflammatory response and putting out good energy, getting a good recovery. That's what we're looking at.
You just brought up something for me that you reminded me of something really important, which is when people change diets. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So let's talk
I've done that.
Yeah, we've all done that.
I've tested a few things out.
Yeah. And
yeah.
so there's a period of time whenever you shift your diet to whatever, if you're going keto, vegan, if you're doing paleo, whatever, when you will feel good no matter what you're doing. No matter what you're doing to change your diet, there is a period of time where you're going to experience a change, right? Mm-hmm. If you're too alkalinic and you start eating a meat diet, you're going to feel really good because you're going to start swinging back towards the middle. And conversely, if you are really acidic, and the truth is that most people are really acidic, right? Most of the world, most of the battle is around acidity, not...
I was super alkaline yesterday, by the way.
You were?
Yeah.
Sorry about it.
Lots of veg. But that's, I wasn't sitting in that sweet spot because I was like, gosh, I'm feeling like a bit dizzy and stuff. And I was like, what's going on? And so had to get some electrolytes in.
Alkalosis, man. Alkalosis is just as bad as acidosis.
Yeah.
So what do you think when it comes to epigenetics, right? We can dial in on what style of food you should be eating, right? That's what that allows you to do. But for Joe Average, if I'm just looking to be healthy, I just want to be healthy, I don't want to change like the world, what do you think we have to do? Is it having that awareness from using things like pH strips or using technology, or it can be a lot more simple than that? Is it just a matter of drinking 2 liters of water a day and eating your vegetables with every meal? Like how do you approach this?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm going to prelude and say I'll approach it differently with every person that walks through the door, because that's how I work. I believe in treating the individual for how they show up. But let's say we're trying to do a little bit of information for people who have no idea where to start for themselves and just no awareness maybe around how their body functions. We're not taught this stuff, how our body functions, how it works, how it lives in our days, like how we actually live with in the world. We don't think about it, how we live with nature and how we actually are nature. So when we come down to it, I actually think I will take the approach of nature in this. We can watch easily how animals operate, and they don't change much. Like we watch that they change over season, don't they? They migrate. We watch how they, search for food, and some animals eat small portion sizes and some animals eat big portion sizes, and then they kind of fast for days, right? So we can take those concepts and realize, oh, well, each body isn't the same. And we can look at our body and say, oh, okay, if I'm more of a mesomorphic type body, which I am, you guys say mesomorph here, sorry, mesomorph type body here, I'm going to need some energy to move, put into my muscles. So my body type will need protein, especially animal protein. You can go fish. I'm going to prelude this all. You can go fish and veg in your days, and then off you go. You're more an ectotype body, brain driven. Coach G over here. Yes, brain driven, neurologically driven. A lot of your energy is used up by your brain, fats in the diet. So guess what? We could also put some protein in there, animal protein, fish and veg, right? And then we go over to the more endomorphic type body. So bigger body has bigger bones, the biggest bones on the planet. And we say, okay, they might not need to eat as much because they're able to conserve their energy a bit more. But what would benefit them most in their digestive system, because they're the digesters, their metabolism is what they need to take care of most. Oh, we could probably put in quite a bit of veg and some nice omega-3s to help clean up the digestive system. So with each body type, if I were to recommend one thing, is high quality omega-3s, because that's going to lower inflammation levels. So fish, right? And we're in a glorious country here where we have access to all of that kind of stuff. So get a variety of fish in, and then get in your leafy greens, and then get in some slow burning carb vegetables. So root vegetable. It's quite simple. And over time, that'll start to decrease inflammation in the bodies. Now, portion sizing, I want to talk about, what does it look like on our plate? But that picture alone will help so many people get back on board on kind of, and people would say it's pescatarian. And I say, okay, well, what exactly is pescatarian? Are you having breads in there? Are you having grains? I don't really know how people view this. So I'm just going to say fish, leafy greens, and kind of a root vegetable of some sort. So like, squash, beetroot, and then leafy greens, we can go into, broccolis, kale, spinach, this kind of stuff is what we want to stick to on our plates. So then we say, okay, well, what does that look like? And, traveled the world, it's been quite interesting to watch portion size vary across the world, which is always interesting. Sometimes you get like, I just remember being in the US and my steak was like, huge. It was longer than my arm. And so that portion sizing wouldn't be serving me, right? And that size of protein. And this is why people fall into that acidic side. They say, oh, I can't eat meat. I can't eat meat at all. And it's like, well, no, you can have some, but palm size is where you want to sit. And do this with fish, do this with any protein you have. We just don't need to overdo the protein. Even me, I am the protein person that burns proteins through my bodies and amino acids, but I don't want to overdo the protein. Else, like we said, I'll become too acidic and I'll start developing things like, cancer cells in my body over time. So I would say coming back to that basic plate would help your family members. And, there's so many different kinds of vegetables. I don't even think we know all of them, but start searching, start planting. And then the other thing too is herbs. Darn it.
Herbs.
Darn it.
You pick me up every time you say that.
Ooh, yeah, we don't pronounce the H. So in Chinese medicine, we do focus a lot on herbs, and this is huge for inflammatory responses. So spicing it up in your life a little bit is going to help you for sure. A different kind of herbs, and they do use herbs as medicine. So why can't we? And why can't we add that into our diet every day as well? It can be quite simple. We make it a bit complicated, don't we?
Yeah. Let's take a pause. So just to recap, so you kind of got into something called phenotypology then, which is the ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph. So if you're a skinny body type, what was the 3 key points in that one? If you're skinny body type, ectomorph, you're going to need
more neurologically driven, fast metabolism. You're burning the fats in your body because our brain chews up all the fats that we take. So brain's working all the time. We need more fats in our diet, but the fats do need to be combined with proteins as well. If you're just eating straight up fat, not really gonna get assimilated too well. So that's where I came into, okay, fish on the plate, get some veg in, and also get in, the root vegetables. And with this type they just drive forward. So this type actually also needs electrolytes in the body. And I think you can speak into that too, because minerals, proper minerals in the water, electrolytes, and the water quality, I could get into that, but we don't know. We don't really test our water quality. We don't really know what it is. So, trace minerals in the water is essential for people, just so they know that that's what they're getting and they're able to perform better. And that's going to help the brain recover for an ectomorphic type body, because that's what we want.
And the endomorph, so a bigger body type, bigger hips, bigger bones, heavier set. What do they need to focus
on? Rugby guys. Yeah. Those guys would have more vegetables on their plate generally. I would say, yeah. So, well, it depends on their actual body, but in general, more vegetables on their plate, longer digestive tract, the longest digestive tract, more than any other body type. So, if we were to unravel their digestive tract, it would actually be longer. And coming into that and saying, okay, cooked veggies, because with a long digestive tract, then you have a longer time to hang on to food, don't you? So they're masters at just sucking up all the nutrients and minerals because they have that. Now, what if we put a lot of meat in there? Well, it actually starts to ferment in the digestive tract, and we will see things like, just digestive issues. I'm trying to think of the word I'm looking for at the moment, but it's going to lower serotonin levels because serotonin levels are created in the digestive tract. If we have leaky gut, that's what I was looking for, leaky gut, these kind of things, which a lot of people walk around with because they're really heavy on the grains and cured meats, salted meats, I don't know, KFC.
Yep.
I don't know, haven't had that in a long, long time, but you know, these kind of things. So we want to get back to going to the grocery store, buying fresh, and just starting there is a really good start. And taking the whole family along with it, with that health type too. Having everyone supporting each other on this journey is always really helpful, and they'll notice inflammatory levels drop for sure.
And then the meso, which is yourself, what does
Hey.
the meso need to do? What is the
You know, not so far off the ecto in a way, but veg, very, very low sugar diet for us. We actually don't do well on fruits too well. You guys do well on fruits. And I think it depends on the person and how they react. But, you know, a largely fruit diet will actually create an inflammatory response if we're not burning off those sugars. Same with the proteins too. If we're just sitting around and we're not exercising, we are the movers. So we need to exercise, we need to move, and we need to interact and express. And if we're not doing that, the proteins will build up in our liver. But if we're burning that all off, we're feeling good, we need to energize up, and we do that by eating a little bit more protein in our diets naturally. So, and lots of veg. I've done quite well with fish, a small portion of fish and or meat or chicken, and I always try to go as organic or freshly caught as I can find, and just local veg is always quite good. Yeah.
So very, very paleo-y, kind of caveman-y.
In a way, yeah. I wouldn't do that for breakfast for myself, or I shouldn't say for breakfast. One meal a day would probably be vegetarian for me.
Yep.
Yeah, because I don't need to overdo the meat. So I think when I say this, it's kind of like, I wonder if people are thinking I need meat in every meal. Well, no, not necessarily. I would have maybe some meat or salmon with my breakfast in the morning, and then off I go throughout the day. And as I feel like I need more, I just give myself more. I don't have a set protocol for that. And for me, it switches on season too, because my activity levels will change too based on season. So we just have to be really self-aware of where we're at and what we're doing. And I think a lot of us shut off to that because we're so busy. This is kind of life. We forget about ourselves and what we really need.
Yeah, creating space. So I had a conversation with a strength coach about that, about creating space so that we can have some clarity around the decisions we're making, because we're just on autopilot for so.
We are on autopilot. Yeah.
Yep.
Totally.
This podcast is brought to you by No Ugly Sleep, New Zealand's first scientifically developed sleep tonic. This product is literally armed to the teeth with the highest quality sleep precursors that were formulated to improve your body's natural sleep performance without the sedation, so you can sail off to dreamland and enjoy a great night's sleep. For our listeners, if you shoot across to our Sleep Loop shop and enter the code NOUGLY, you'll get a sweet as 10% discount off a full month supply of No Ugly Sleep.
Let's dive into water. I know you're a water fiend. You're the one that introduced me to hydrogen water, litmus test. I've done litmus testing on Auckland's water before, and it wasn't good.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
6.8, which is barely. I think that's the bottom of the mark. I don't know if you're allowed to go any lower than 6.8.
Yeah, when I turn on my tap, it smells a bit chlorinated. So, you know, however that's working in the system, I don't really know. But I thought, okay, well, I can't go and change the whole system for everybody, but, you know, we can. So I have a water distiller, and I distill my water and then put in trace minerals and remake my water. And I started doing this probably a couple of years ago, actually, because I was traveling so much and I was going from country to country. And, you know, the first rule is when you go into countries, even third world countries, don't drink the water, right? Like everyone says that, don't drink the water. You're going to get fill in the blank. You don't know what you're going to get, but you're probably going to be on the toilet. No fun. And so I started really honing, well, why water? You know, we have to drink so much a day, you know, 2 to 3 liters, depending on the person, sometimes 4, depending on how active they are, how much we're sweating. You know, it was a really toasty summer here in New Zealand. So have to hydrate. We're doing this all the time. And what if we're not hydrating ourselves with proper, clean, pure water is the question. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do a little test run on this. And with that change alone, it lowered my inflammation levels of making my own water. And then I thought, oh, interesting. I'm going to try this with athletes. Okay, let's get them on pure water that we know is, pH balanced and trace minerals and all this stuff. Oh, they're having better performance, more mental clarity, these kind of things. So it's really important to look into that and how and where it's coming from. Huge. I mean, what are we, 67% water? I don't know if that stat's right, but we're quite a bit of water. And so those molecules interact with everything that we do all the time. They help us perform. And naturally, most of us to start off with are just walking around dehydrated. So, headaches, feeling low, not craving sugar. That's a big one. And so with that, they say, oh, and I'm craving sugar. I'm like, how much water do you drink? Is always my first question. And they're like, oh, I'm probably dehydrated. So we'll go for other stuff to try to fill us up when actually our body just really needs to be hydrated. And so, let's put that into practice, right? Wake up, 1 liter in the morning, done, dusted, off you go. Yep. Easy. Yeah. Everybody.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of 500 mils in the water, of mineralized water. Actually, why do you put the minerals in the water?
The trace minerals. So the distiller takes out everything. And so I have to redistill it with the trace minerals. And there's a couple really good companies, I think, in New Zealand doing some trace minerals too, that I'm still looking into. And it just tastes so different. It tastes so different than what comes out of the tap. So we have to really question how the quality of water I think that we're actually getting, and is it actually helping our health? Well, I would say no, and we can do a little bit better for ourselves. So, the one thing I do want to say though is many people will say, well, I have a distiller thing on my fridge. I don't know what you call those, but a filter, I think, on my fridge. Filters aren't good enough. Brita filters aren't good enough either. You can get a distiller online for about $200 and just distill your own water and watch change happen in you. Your mental clarity will be massive. And then you'll also find that you don't need as much water, because let's say we take out the chlorinated side of things. I smell chlorine in my tap for some reason. And so if we take out the chlorinated side of things, my body doesn't have to process that. Well, then maybe I'll actually need less water in my days, and it'll be assimilated well in my body if it's pure. So we're just benefiting ourselves by doing it.
Yeah. Shout out to Biotrace. Biotrace are the minerals that I use.
Cool.
They're epic. It does taste. I think what people struggle with is the salty taste, the saltiness of it.
Salty. Okay.
It says that a very earthy, salty, metallic-y kind of taste, which is minerals, right? You're literally drinking minerals.
We get used to it. Yeah. You don't need much in 1 or 2 drops for every 2 liters or something like that, I think is maybe the ratio.
Well, you can use Himalayan sea salt. It's not as good. I mean, it's not that mineral dense, but it's better than completely filtrated water, right?
Yeah, anything helps. I just, being aware of that. And here we are in New Zealand, surrounded by water. And I was thinking, this is interesting. So maybe just the water systems aren't as up to date as they could be for people. And so we do need to have that awareness of how to take better care of ourselves in our days, and making space to do those little things will just help us grow for sure.
Other options, water from aquifers as well. So if you can get water from that's been taken out of a well, where that water's just been pulled through all the limestone and dropped down into a sink.
I had glacier water in Queenstown, and I was like, wow, this was awesome.
29-year-old water.
So good, so tasty. And people can do the test, take some of that water and then put it beside general tap water and just taste the difference. You'll notice the difference. Could I say one thing about water, actually? So if we have a lot of fluoride and these kind of things in our water, there's quite a bit of studies that it downgrades the pineal gland in the brain. The pineal gland is basically what gives us our own self-awareness and our own connection to self, so to speak. And I did a lot of studies of this in Chinese medicine, and I'm a huge believer around, kind of harnessing our own energy to help us follow our own path. And a lot of people come to me feeling very lost and very stressed, and they don't know what to do, and they're not fulfilled. And they feel like they're kind of robotic on this planet in a way. And so one of the reasons I did tap into water is because it does clean out the pineal gland and helps people almost reconnect to themselves. And with that comes that self-awareness on, oh, I'm actually going to start to dive into, old things maybe that I'm hanging on to, or I'm noticing I have these patterns in my eating habits that I've never noticed before. Oh, what can I do about that? Or how can I help myself? And we start to slow down and really almost step outside of ourselves and look back and say, oh, okay, how can I help myself a little bit more? And that's truly powerful on this journey. And that's something, eventually I want to get into sleeps and what we're doing to just help people really know themselves so well, because when they do, they're able to make better decisions for themselves and their family members, and show up at work not on edge, these kind of things, and show up happy, right? This is really what we want for people, to be happy and fulfilled and feeling healthy. So these little things help for sure.
Amen to that. You talked about herbs. Let's segue to herbs. Herbs.
We should prelude and say it's an ongoing joke that I say herbs
totally.
and Kiwi say herbs, and I just haven't got there yet. I just haven't taken that step. I don't know if I ever will. I'm not sure. We'll see.
What are the most beneficial herbs that we can drink, consume, put in our food to reduce inflammation?
Oh gosh. Well, if we're talking sleep and recovery, lemon balm, lavender, passion fruit. I'm going to just toss magnesium in there, even though it's not an herb, but magnesium, and even melatonin to a certain extent, which also isn't really an herb, but these are, let's call them supplements and herbs, can really help us get a deep sleep. Valerian root has quite a bit of studies behind it as well. So these are all kind of put into teas mostly, or what we created around No Ugly as well with the sleeps beverage, right? So getting the ratios right is one thing, and making it work for your body. So if people take it and say, oh, it didn't work, and it says, well, what's the ratio of what you're having? Are you having just this much tea, or are you actually letting it steep and having a real tea and doing this kind of stuff? So lavender has been quite good with properties of lemon balm, passion fruit extracts, and I would go valerian root. All of those 4 are quite good. There's also ashwagandha coming out of India, and that's proven to reduce inflammation.
Ashwagandha or ashwagandha?
Ashwagandha. Sorry.
Yeah. I thought this is a new one. I don't know this one.
It's just Anne not being able to pronounce it today. Yeah. So there's that. That's quite good for reducing inflammation in the body, especially people who are high stressed all the time. And the interesting component about all of this stuff is, you start to take this stuff, and it's not, you can't really overdo it. Within reason. Okay, let's say, and then you start to track yourself on a device, or just even track yourself on how you feel, and you say, oh gosh, okay, I'm going to do this for a week and see how I feel, and be consistent with my sleep time. And you'll notice that herbs can be quite powerful, given that you have what your body needs. And if we're talking around many people walking around with inflammatory responses, which they totally are, we want to reduce inflammation overnight through sleep. So how can we set that up? And herbs is something I really do work with. Now we can get specific too, and make it specific for the person based on where they're at, and get, liver detox going, kidney healing going, and heart healing. And I love all that stuff. But just basically speaking, I would say those herbs would be the most beneficial before bed. And then we want to hit the other side of things. How are we setting ourselves up for a productive day, so we're not kind of moseying on through our day, and then we take a nap that ends up being 2 hours, and then we miss meals and this kind of stuff. So how can we set up our day well? Green tea is quite good too, with antioxidants in it. So we want to take antioxidants in the morning to help our body, get through the day. We can also take them in the evening. Garlic extract is also something that's quite beneficial for lowering inflammation levels as well. So lots of stuff in foods. I'm a firm believer in foods and in herbs, and we can get a lot out of nature by just going there first before we tap into what I like to call maybe a blanket approach over a long period of time. And this is where people get addicted and lost on their journey when they have, medication over this and all these supplements, and it's kind of all in the same category. They're taking 20 supplements in the night and they can't sleep, and it's confusing and they get frustrated. So, honing it all back and saying, well, what can we do for our food? What can we do with herbs? And off we go.
I really like the idea of attacking stress and pressure during the day. I find that gives me much better results. So often when we get to that period of time of the night where we want to go to bed and we don't know, the worry wheel is just spinning away upstairs.
Yeah.
If you just look back 12 hours in your day, you can see where it started or why it began or how it got compounded. If you were to say have some chamomile tea then, or if you were to have the valerian root or passion flower or no ugly sleep, just a quick little hack, that would combat some of the pressure and make you feel so much better. So that self-awareness to be able to go, okay, I need to take action now, like flush the toilet, so you don't end up with a compounding interest of stress and pressure that you're taking to bed.
Can I pop that into Chinese medicine a little bit? Chinese medicine has taught me a lot in regards to life and way of living. And in a way, I think we do have it all a bit backwards, that so there's yin and yang, everybody knows yin and yang, tattooed on people, everyone's everywhere. But do people actually live it? Is my question. And how do they live it and how do they recognize it? And I think this is something worth bringing up to people because, the yang side of us is the more masculine side, is the more driven side, the focus side, the get stuff done side, which I feel a lot of us really live in all the time. And it's great to get stuff done and move forward. But then there's the yin side, which is the nurturing side, the creative side, the side that's really in that present moment and saying, let's just enjoy this moment together and have a good time and just appreciate it for what it is now. And it's not to go all woo-y or Eastern, but we can take those concepts and say, are they actually in your days? And a lot of people will say, no, I don't have the recovery, calm, creative flow in present moment time. And that's where we spin out. It's really obvious to me is that we're a very yang dominant world, like really, it's everywhere. And we haven't quite learned to get that balance in our days. And we think the balance of sleeping is going to get back our health, but that's not true. We actually need to balance out our days, like you were saying, and take a break and go back to saying, okay, what am I actually doing for myself in this moment? And is it benefiting me, rather than almost chasing our tails in a loop, in a circle all the time? Then we get stuck in that. And we think that's the way we have to live. We've been trained to live that way in a fast-paced society. Well, I think it's time we start to slow it down and start to heal ourselves and really understand the bodies that we live in and enjoy that process. Because, I mean, we really only have, a certain set period of time, whatever we decide that is. And why not learn about ourselves that way to perform a little bit better? And then when that sort of called yang side is on, we actually take that time and use it very well and very productive, rather than being just stuck and stressed, because we might not even get much done, if we're constantly in that side. Does that make sense, G?
Makes complete sense to me, buddy. You're singing to the choir over here.
Good.
That's a great segue to technology and how we measure yang and how we measure yin. So autonomic nervous systems, sleep technology, go.
Okay. Oh, I've been on a tech journey for a while, and then I went off it for a little while because I wanted to, I went on the tech journey for self-awareness is where I started for myself. And then I went to, obviously testing algorithms and to see which has the most precision. Well, we can say that AI anywhere is never going to be 100%. So let's just, it's just not. So that's, the prelusion of this one. But I've really gone down a journey. I've worn the Whoop, I've worn Oura Ring. I've gone through testing my HRV, my heart rate variability, to see how my inflammatory response are doing. If the heartbeats are really close together, I might have something going on. Stress levels are high, and doesn't necessarily mean mental stress, could be physical stress as well. And just really honing in on how to so-called increase my HRV, therefore lowering inflammation. This brings us back to the first topic, which is nice. So here I am, testing my sleep. And then naturally, we always want to compare to other people, don't we? Yep. What did you get? How are you doing? And I want to tell people that if they're going down this lane, great. That's great awareness for you. We cannot compare to one another. Our days all look way different than each other's. And comparing to your buddy at work, at the computer, saying, oh, did you get 8 hours last night? How much REM sleep did you get? Right? We can't do that because we don't live in the same body. So, great place to start. Now, what it does do is give you the self-awareness of what your trends are like over time. This is just for you. It's individualized just for you, and gives a lot of knowledge around where I'm at in regards to REM sleep, deep sleep, light sleep, which I kind of like. And then also, we're getting into what activity looks like during the day. So we can almost set our days up to suit us better for a better recovery. And we are looking to recover. So some days, if, we're in a habitual state of going to the gym every day, which a lot of people really think they need to work out to actually lose weight. Well, actually, maybe to lose inflammation, you need to rest and go on a recovery week or two, and just eat a bunch of veg and low protein, and get out for walks and do some things that are more, yin, and take care of yourself. Self-care. It's okay to do that. And instead of getting caught up in that loop of the harder I work, the more results I'm going to have. Not true. So I believe that it gives that awareness for people to take the next steps on what their days actually need to look like for themselves. And once they start to feel that and think it and recognize in themselves, maybe they don't need the wearable as much anymore, or they don't need to attach to it as much. There's also the obsession side of it too. Oh, what did I get? Oh, I didn't have a good sleep. Well, I'm going to feel crappy all day because I didn't get a good sleep, right? Like, we can attach our mental game onto this too. So, take it with knowledge, and then know where you're showing up for yourself that day and how you want to show up for yourself, and setting up your schedules, and then just sticking to it, being somewhat consistent as much as possible. We are humans, so we'll never be super consistent, but, just keeping it on track and knowing what to do for yourself when you're off track, how to get back on track. That is always good. Yeah, the wearables.
I definitely find that with those particular, with the devices, that it allows me to do a test retest model. So I can try mineralized water versus normal water, change nothing else, and see what happens. I can try exercising in the morning or exercising in the afternoon and see what impact that has on my recovery. And so I just love the direct feedback loop that it gives you.
And over time too, right? Like, people will do that in one day, and they're not going to get a result in one day. You want to do it for 2 weeks and then really see what's happening in your body, because that's an actual gene expression over time. Some genes do turn on daily, but we want to give it time to express itself. So I like that you do that. Use yourself as a little, tester to see what feels best in your days, and then stick to that of what you need to do. Many people just need to move more. They're just sitting. What they'll get on their wearable is that they're sitting too much. Yeah. And so get out, move, and walk. I like that about New Zealand, though. A lot of walkers, hikers, outdoorsy people. It's quite good. Really good. Yeah.
We're very fortunate here. You actually just reminded me of something as well, on the inflammation thing, is that I was talking to a client literally yesterday, and she had put on like 5 kilos. And like a week and a half. And I was like, okay. She's like, I put on 5 kilos of body fat. I was like, that's not body fat. You can't put on 5 kilos of body fat in 8 days. That's not physically possible. That's inflammation. So then the question becomes, what are you going on? What's going on in your life that's creating so much inflammation inside your system? So something to be aware of if you're out there and you're dumping on lots of weight. It's not necessarily, maybe you are eating poorly as well, but the the chance of that being body fat in such a short space of time is highly unlikely, and vice versa too. If you're losing weight and you're losing like 5 kilos, 10 kilos in a week, that's not body fat.
Right.
It's almost physically impossible, right?
Yeah. Could be inflammation. And speaking into that too a bit around inflammation is that it might be food, but it also could be mental stress. It could be social stress. It could be through relationships. Like, we're human. We have to look at every part of our days. Did your environment change drastically? Like, we have to ask really what's going on in that human's life. And that's kind of why I love to bring it together, catering to the actual person that's in front of me rather than putting them through a generic system all the time. It's great knowledge in the beginning to, I think, help people around where their deficits are, right? That we can generalize that in a way. But when we start to take the deep dive on health, it has to be individualized now. What did that lady go through in the last few weeks that has changed her life? And obviously there's things happening. And so as practitioners, we really need to start to ask the right questions to people, and not in the 15-minute appointment, and get to know the person that we're working with, because then we're going to get really good results. And they'll get knowledge and they'll share it with their friends and family and so on. So I just see it as being quite powerful if we're able to come back and really help people around, those issues and educate them on what they need to do to move forward. So, yeah, it could be seasons. It could be anything, right? Inflammation. We don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Are you ready for the big finisher?
Sure. Am I? I don't know. Am I?
Yeah, here it comes. So I like to ask all my guests, what are your top 3 tips to living an abundant life?
I only got 3?
Only 3, mate.
Only 3?
Yeah.
Oh man. That's okay. No, I have mine, I think. That's a good question, G. Top 3. Nature. I'm so that nature can teach us so much. Many people in their days strive to be perfect and try to be something. But if we actually come back to nature and we look at nature, well, this flower doesn't look like that flower, does it? And they're both very beautiful. So when I say nature, it comes down to self-acceptance, the body that you live in, and just being aware of the body that you live in around that. And I guess that would kind of be 3 things looped into one, is accepting yourself, and then being aware of yourself, and then being accountable for it. Would be the 3 tips that I would give to people. And there's so many people out there doing great things in health that can help everybody on their journey. And it comes down to, caring for one another and hearing their stories about it, and coming back to the human rather than the system, if that makes sense. Really coming back to what that human needs, then plopping them into a system. So, nature gives us freedom. It gives us space. It gives us accountability. So that would be my big takeaway, with 3 little components in it.
Yeah, you have a saying. What's it say? It goes something like, "We aren't in nature. We are nature." Something like that.
Yeah, we really are. We've constructed stuff around us in a way that takes us away, I think, from connecting to ourselves, and on many levels, on a biology level, on an energetic level, on a mental level, on a spiritual level, if you want to say as well. And so when we leave more space, like we were talking about in our days, it allows us to get to know ourselves better, and really coming back to how nature can actually help us heal. There's so many things out there, and we have a lot to learn, I believe, from it all the time. We can observe, and it actually plays a role in us from time to time. Talk about inflammation levels. Even getting out to nature is proven to lower inflammation levels if we're stuck in the city all the time. Yeah. So these kind of things is really important. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Good way to finish.
Cool.
Hope I won. Ka-ching!
Thanks, G. Appreciate it. It's fun.
I'm sure we'll do it again. I know we'll
Okay.
do it.
I'm in. Okay. Thanks, G. Bye.